Hi, everyone. Tim Royers, your NSEA President, here with a bit of a deeper dive into the retirement contribution rate change that we said would be coming, because the goal of this is to go over some of the questions and concerns that have come to us or have come to local leaders who have then passed them on to us, and try and give you some additional context and information that you can use. And of course, if there's still something that you have that's not covered in this video, don't hesitate to reach out. So I'm going to dive right in and start with the biggest concern that we've had. I think the overall theme of the concerns that we've had is like, this sounds too good to be true, right? The idea that my contribution rate is going down and I'm going to see more money in my pocket, but that there's not a downside, that people are skeptical. And I get that. But again, thankfully, we've done our homework. The math looks great. This truly is just a win without any strings attached. So let's get to the first concern that we've heard, which is that this is a short-term victory, but a long-term setback. So we've had some members reach out and convinced that because they are paying less in, while that's good for now, right? While that means their monthly paycheck's going to look better, it's going to hurt them in the long term because they're going to get less out when they retire, right? That's their concern. Because they're paying less in, they're going to get less out when they retire. That's fundamentally not true. This is not like a 401k or a 403b or any of those plans that are based on what you contribute. NPERS is a defined benefit plan, meaning what you get out of the retirement system is not directly based on what you put in. It's based on a formula that looks at your years of service, what your average pay was when your best average pay was when you were actively working in a school district, and then there's a multiplier that they throw into the formula, and that kicks out what your monthly payment will be when you retire. That's how our system works. And defined benefit plans are kind of a rare breed nowadays. They've largely been replaced by things like 401ks and 403bs. But no, this is a defined benefit plan. So while what we put in impacts the plan, right? Because you obviously need to have enough resources to make that formula work. It's not a direct what you put in determines what you get out. It's the formula that determines what you'll get out of the retirement plan. So to reiterate, the contribution rate does not directly determine what you get out of retirement. And so if you're currently retired, this bill had no impact on you because it didn't touch the formula, didn't touch the benefit payout, didn't touch anything, right? And if you are actively employed and you're worried that this will somehow reduce your benefit when you do retire, I can emphatically tell you it won't, because again, the formula was unchanged. And in fact, that's what brought on this bill, right? We realized that we were overfunding the plan based on the formula. So way more. We were putting in tens of millions of dollars more into the plan each year than was necessary to fully cover all the payouts, not only now, but in the future. And so again, I want to start by just reiterating that because this is a defined benefit plan, the contribution rate going down will not negatively impact your payout down the road. And if you're curious about the formula or anything else, this is already going to be a decently long video. I don't want to dive into it, but you can certainly reach out to me. NPERS itself has a PDF that has the formula. There's a calculator you can use. You can dive into that on your own. But I just want to make sure to reiterate, because again, that was the biggest concern that we heard. No, this will not reduce your retirement benefit in any way. The next thing that we heard questions or concerns about is this whole difference between OSERS and NPERS. Why does Omaha Public Schools have its own retirement system? Why are they separate from NPERS? And why are they not getting the rate change? So way back in the day, there was no structured retirement system for public school educators in the state of Nebraska. And Omaha decided to they were on the progressive edge. They established their own retirement plan for their employees because there was nothing. And that stayed true for about 20 years, where there was a retirement plan in Omaha, OSERS, and there wasn't anything for anyone else. And then eventually the state of Nebraska created NPERS. So OSERS was actually first out the gate. That's why there's two separate plans. The reason why we're not seeing any rate change for OSERS is because while NPERS is in a very healthy situation, it's right about to be 100% fully funded. That's not the case for OSERS, unfortunately. So during right around the housing crisis, some not great investment decisions were made for OSERS, and as a result, the plan lost a substantial amount of its value. And so while NPERS is just about 100% funded, OSERS is only about 60% funded. So we couldn't, in good faith, advocate that less money should be paid in to the OSERS system because they need to be overpaying right now to help get their plan back on track and get their plan healthy. And in fact, that was a win we secured for OSERS. It's not as exciting as putting more money in your pocket, but there was an element of the bill that says the state has to continue to pay its contribution into OSERS, even if its contribution into NPERS is going down. And you can thank Senator Danielle Conrad for that particular language. It was added at the very, very, very end of the process. But it's important. And the reason it's important is because the state had a $500 million budget shortfall, and they were cutting things left and right. They easily could have said, we don't really care. We're going to take this money. We need to balance the budget. But we preserved that money, and that's really important. And if you're an Omaha member and you're feeling kind of anxious about the status of your plan based on what I've just told you, I'll remind you that about 12, 13 years ago, NPERS was only about 70% funded. And now we're at 100% funded. So there is a path back. And where OSERS is being overfunded right now, just like NPERS was purposefully overfunded to help get it back on track. So that's the reason for the difference. And that's the reason why OSERS members and OEA members aren't seeing any decline in their contribution rate, because we got to prioritize getting that plan healthy first. And then hopefully in a few years, we do reduce the contribution rates the same way. The next concern that we heard dealt with, kind of just market volatility, right? It seems like depending on what week you look, the stock market is tanking and then the next week it's skyrocketing. And so we've had a number of members reach out with concerns that the contribution rate is going to constantly be going back and forth. It's going to be whipsawing all over the place. When the market is up, they'll see the rate go down, but then it's going to plummet, and then they're going to see the rate go up, and they're just worried that it's going to make it really hard to predict how much you're actually going to see in your paycheck. So 2 important things to note. The way this works is based on the report they get in November, they'll set the rate for the coming school year July 1st. So the reason why the rate is changing this July is because in last November's report, the plan was 99.91% funded. And so you're not going to see, it's not like you're going to see it change from one month to the next. They set the rate in July, and then that's the rate until next July. No matter how great or poor the market is, that's the rate. But probably the more important thing you need to know is they've already taken that into account. When they set the rate, it's based on the actuarial value of the plan, not the market value of the plan. Meaning, if we go back to that November report, when they paused and did a snapshot of the value of NPERS resources, if you purely went off of what it was actually valued at that moment, based on how the market was doing, the plan is actually 103% funded at that point. But the reason why the actuarial value was only 99% funded is because they look at it over a 5-year average. Because they recognize the exact same concern that you did, right? That if you're constantly looking at just live snapshots of how the market is doing, you're going to be going all over the place. So to solve that problem, they take the last 5 years and they smooth out based on how the market's been doing to figure out how healthy the plan actually is. So the reason why that's important, and the reason why I've been reassuring members who have reached out that I'm confident that you're not going to see us constantly ping-ponging between rates, is because, do the math. It's 2025. Subtract 5 years, 2020. Meaning, in the current 5-year average, you're still seeing all of the negative market performance from the pandemic being factored in when we say the plan is 99.91% funded. So I want to reassure you, we're highly confident. And even the actuarial study that we did said that in the majority of the time, over the next 30 years, we're going to be living in those lower rates because of the reasons that I just said. So again, don't panic if there's a really bad week in the stock market, and don't get your hopes up if there's a really good week, because they're looking over a 5-year average. to see how things are going. So that brings me to the next big question that we got, which is, what's the best case scenario and what's the worst case scenario? Because again, we went from 9.78% to 8%. That's not the lowest we can go because, again, we're not fully funded technically, right? We're 99.9% funded and the bill does not round. So if this November we find out that we've officially crossed over and the actuarial value of the plan is above 100% or just 100% dead on, then we'll go down one more notch down to 7.25%. That's the lowest the contribution rate can go according to the bill that was passed this past session. So it could very well be that next July, you're going to see even more money going into your pocket because we go down one final gear because of how healthy the plan is. So that's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is to go back to basically where you were as of last month. 9.75% is the worst case scenario. But again, there's several gates between those two rates. And again, that's based on the smoothed 5-year average. So that's the worst case scenario. We could very well see the best case scenario next year. And we think this is actually really important. It's one of the reasons we got behind this bill is because we want to kind of future-proof. If there is a scenario where the plan gets unhealthy again and we need to put more resources in, it's automatic, including increasing the state's contribution is automatic. The reason why that's important is because 12, 13 years ago, when they made the changes they did to set it to the current investment levels, help overfund it and get it back on track, it was a massive political fight to make that happen. In fact, Governor Heineman vetoed the bill, and they had to cobble up enough votes to override a gubernatorial veto to make the bill become a law. So given that, it was really important for us to make sure that if the plan's health was jeopardized in the future, things would happen automatically because you just don't know what the makeup of the legislature is going to be or who the governor is going to be. And so we were really happy those guardrails were going to be put in. And the final question or topic that was brought up was, how is this going to impact negotiations? Well, hopefully in a very good way, because not only did the state's contribution rate go down, not only is your contribution rate going down, but the district's contribution rate is going down, right? Because for every dollar that you put into the retirement system, your employer is required to match it 101%. So they're seeing a drop as well. And that's an element of your total package that's now gone down by nearly 2%. So hopefully that means that your district is willing to take that freed up money and repurpose it into salary and help give you even stronger salary growth than maybe you were originally planning. And remember the timing that I said to you about when the report comes out. The report comes out in November, indicating what the health of the plan is. Well, that's right when you are obligated to start bargaining, which means you not only, hopefully, will you know that this year we're at the lower rate, but hopefully we get the good news in November that in the following year, it's going to go down even further, down to the 7.25%, which means you can bank on even greater savings that you can repurpose into salary as well. So, because again, just like how we are putting tens of millions of dollars back into the pockets of educators, we're also saving school districts tens of millions of dollars from what they thought they were going to have to spend this year when they negotiated your agreements. And in fact, I know there's already examples of locals who have managed to get that money repurposed into salary because of the savings, which huge kudos to those groups for acting as quickly as you did. But I want to make that clear. So those were all the major topics that came up. And we could have written a massively long email. And I'm sure we'll put a written guide together anyway, because not everybody has 15 minutes to sit and watch me talk to you about this issue. But I wanted to give you something for you to listen to, because I know for a lot of people, they prefer this way anyway. But again, please, please, please get the word out. Make sure everybody knows they're seeing more money in their pockets starting this month because of this bill. And the NSEA was a huge driver in making this bill become a reality. And that it was all of us working together. It was general membership, our leadership, and our staff all working together to make sure that this became a bill that was beneficial for us and beneficial for the retirement system. And again, people are going to be seeing millions of dollars going back into their pockets this school year that otherwise would have been going into an overfunded retirement system, and that's a huge win. So make sure, especially as we're gearing up for membership in the coming school year, if you have colleagues who are currently not members, but they've been working with you for more than just this upcoming school year, make sure they know that the reason they're seeing that additional money in their pocket is because of us, and that we need them to be a part of our organization so we can keep delivering victories for educators year over year. So again, thank you very much. And if this video did not fully answer all of your questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out. We're happy to get into the weeds with you on this, whether it's me, whether it's one of our amazing staff members. We'll make sure that you feel like you are informed and fully aware of how this bill works and how it impacts you and your colleagues. So thank you very much. I hope you're enjoying your summer, and we'll be in touch soon.